There's always an explanation for what you come across abandoned at the roadside. An old, musty styrofoam cup might have been carelessly discarded by a passing driver, while weathered crates could have fallen off a speeding truck over the years. However, some discoveries remain shrouded in mystery. One morning in February 2020, a Sunderland, England, resident embarked on a leisurely walk along a wooded path. After meandering through the winding trail for some time, he emerged onto the street and noticed something highly unusual. Adjacent to a public garbage can, he spotted two tied-off pillowcases, one of them adorned with a Buzz Lightyear graphic. Strangely, it appeared as though the bags were moving. Intrigued and perplexed, he gingerly peered inside, only to jump back in shock. Uncertain about what to do and unsettled by his discovery, the man turned to the Farringdon Community Fire Station for guidance. This small suburban community in Sunderland was close-knit, with residents who looked out for one another. The pillowcases contained a shocking surprise. 13 royal pythons, split between the two bags, were slithering in close quarters. The man promptly reported the discovery to the firehouse, and the firefighters took the bags to a place of safety. However, the following day brought an even more disturbing development. Members of the firehouse returned to the area where the snakes were found and were horrified to find two additional bags of snakes, this time concealed inside the garbage can. The firefighters were appalled by the cruelty and negligence displayed by the person responsible for abandoning these animals. While snakes may not be the cuddliest creatures, they, like all living beings, deserve humane treatment. The second set of pillowcases contained 15 corn snakes in one bag and a single carpet python, known to reach lengths of up to 9 feet as adults, in the other. The firefighters were left with numerous questions. Where did these snakes come from, and who had access to such a variety of them? These were the inquiries swirling in the minds of the bewildered firefighters at the station. Trevor Walker, an inspector with the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, RSPCA, remarked, "Whoever did this discarded them without any concern for the animals, and they went around back to avoid being found out." Thankfully, Walker safely transferred all the snakes to a local veterinarian, who was equally astonished by the discovery, for a thorough examination. Sadly, one of the snakes passed away shortly after arrival. Fortunately, none of the species found were venomous, so they posed no threat to the rescuers, even in the event of a bite. Officials suspected that the snakes had likely come from a breeder, as none of them were native to England. In the United Kingdom, only 4 snake species are native: 2 types of grass snakes, the smooth snake and the venomous adder. Abandoning exotic animals is not only cruel but also illegal, as it can have detrimental effects on the ecosystem. For example, when a Burmese python owner inadvertently allowed several of these snakes to escape in the Florida Everglades, they wreaked havoc on local wildlife by outcompeting native species. England was already grappling with the issue of liberated pets impacting its ecosystem. The snake population throughout England was dwindling due to a deadly snake fungus that attacked their scales. Introducing new species could accelerate this decline, and these non-native snakes weren't equipped to survive the harsh English winters like their native counterparts. After the local vet confirmed that the remaining 28 snakes were in good health, RSPCA Inspector Walker drove them 100 miles to a reptile specialist in Yorkshire who could provide proper care for them. "Hopefully some of them can be rehomed," Walker said. While the Farringdon Fire Station hasn't encountered any more serpentine surprises, they are determined to find the person responsible. They understand the potential consequences of an uncontrolled snake population. The Burmese python, in particular, is not to be underestimated. These colossal creatures can reach lengths of up to 23 feet and weigh over 160 pounds. They are opportunistic predators capable of consuming a wide range of prey, from mice to adult deer. Interestingly, a couple of decades ago, few people in Florida were even aware of their presence. Native to Asia's tropics, these pythons established a thriving population in the Everglades after escaping from a zoo following the devastation of Hurricane Andrew. While their exact origin remains uncertain, biologist Frank Mazzotti was determined to prevent them from spreading into densely populated areas like Miami. He was ready to employ every possible method to combat this invasive species. However, the challenge was formidable. Local efforts included deploying snake-sniffing dogs in the marshes and releasing radio-equipped Judas snakes to locate their breeding grounds. Despite these efforts, the python population continued to flourish. Rumors circulated that the pythons had taken over an abandoned Nike missile site. While this in itself wasn't a direct threat, there was a fear that if left unchecked, the pythons would multiply rapidly and venture into more populated areas. The stakes were high, but Frank learned of a group that might hold the solution. Deep in the forests of southern India, the Irula people had perfected the art of snake catching. They considered it a sacred practice and continued to take it seriously, even in the face of India's strict regulations on snake trading. In recent years, the Irula tribe has gained recognition for their expertise in capturing venomous reptiles used in producing antiphenoms. Undoubtedly, they were the most qualified experts for the job. But how could Floridians convince this tribe, located on the other side of the world, to assist their community? To their surprise, Frank and his fellow herpetologists managed to establish contact with the Irula snake catchers, who expressed interest in helping. However, the Floridians would need to provide substantial funding and be open to unconventional methods. It may be hard to believe, but the Irulas relied on a simple tool commonly found in garages, the tire iron. However, these tire irons weren't intended for aggressive use, as in a whacking day from The Simpsons. Instead, the Irulas used them to clear paths through dense vegetation and gently pick up snakes, with a preference for capturing them alive whenever possible. Frank welcomed the two top Irula hunters, Masi Sadayan and Vadivil Gopal, to the Everglades. Despite being in their 50s, these hunters were at the peak of their skills. The Floridians were initially concerned when they learned that the Irulas had never hunted snakes as large as those in the Everglades. However, Masi and Vadivil saw this as a thrilling challenge, an opportunity to test their abilities to the fullest. From the outset, the Irulas' methods puzzled Frank and his team. They insisted on traversing the thickest parts of the swamp without a clear trail. When a snake's trail disappeared, Masi and Vadivil would instruct everyone to sit down, pray, and smoke a cigarette. Frank's hopes waned until one of the Irulas spotted a glimmer in the mud. Armed with their trusty tire irons, Masi and Vadivil skillfully captured a fully grown python. This was just the beginning. With several more captures under their belts, the Irulas bravely ventured into an abandoned missile shaft where herpetologists had identified a nest. The keen-eyed hunters grabbed hold of a muscular python tail and spent hours wrestling it out from among tree roots. In one afternoon, the Irulas extracted 4 massive pythons from the overgrown missile shaft, increasing their total to 14 in the first 2 weeks. Although they couldn't stay in the Everglades indefinitely, they shared their knowledge with the local wildlife management team. Conventional techniques had proven ineffective in locating these pythons, and the Irula expertise held the potential to stem the invasion. Apart from paying the Irulas over $4,000 for each python captured, the Floridians wanted to offer them an authentic American experience. In between expeditions, they watched NFL games and indulged in hot dogs at Arbetter's, their favorite local eatery. After a month of intense efforts, the Irulas returned to India, invigorated by the experience of a lifetime. The Floridians knew they were fortunate to have found experts who could combat the snake invasion, but they also recognized that heroes weren't always readily available. Sometimes, everyday individuals must rely on their wits to survive encounters with deadly animals. In the spring of 2017, a mother of 4 named Bianca Dickinson drove her youngest child, Molly, to the end of the long driveway on their ranch in Victoria, Australia, to meet the school bus. However, an unexpected guest was about to join their morning routine. To pass the time while waiting for the school bus to drop off her older children, Bianca decided to take a few photographs of her 2-year-old daughter, Molly. For about 15 minutes, mother and daughter played and snapped silly pictures together until their fun came to an abrupt halt. As the school bus came into view down the road, Molly posed for one last photo beside a wire fence, wearing a wide grin and pointing behind her towards the swaying grass. It seemed like the perfect photo opportunity, but what happened next was far from ordinary. Bianca, looking through her camera lens at her daughter, noticed something moving in her peripheral vision. At first, she assumed it was a piece of tree bark falling from a nearby tree. However, her assumption couldn't have been more wrong. What Bianca initially thought was tree bark turned out to be an eastern brown snake, the second most venomous snake in the world. To make matters worse, it was lurking just inches away from her unsuspecting toddler. The venom from an eastern brown snake could paralyze its victims and thin their blood to the point of seepage through their pores. A single bite had enough venom to kill 20 adults, and immediate treatment was essential. Bianca's stomach turned as she realized the danger her daughter was in. She later explained, "I was looking through my camera lens and was looking at my daughter. I saw something move in the corner of my eye and actually thought it was bark coming off the tree. However, it wasn't bark." The snake, which was just inches away from Molly, could have struck if Bianca made any sudden movements or loud noises. So instead of panicking, she did something remarkable. She froze, hoping Molly would instinctively follow suit. Molly indeed imitated her mother's stillness, and the eastern brown snake, to Bianca's immense relief, slithered away into the tall grass. As the school bus arrived and her 3 older children disembarked, Bianca was still trembling with fear. Once in the car, she urged her older kids to get in quickly. During the drive back up the driveway, her 13-year-old daughter, Imogen, asked if she had seen a snake. Bianca nodded and confirmed it was at least 2 meters long. However, her children found it hard to believe. "Oh, Mum, it wasn't that big," Imogen exclaimed. But as mothers often do, Bianca knew better. Back at home, she retrieved her camera and showed her children the photos of the venomous snake that had come dangerously close to their little sister. The sight shook them all to their core. Upon realizing just how perilously close Molly had been to the deadly snake, Bianca's older 3 children were filled with fear and refused to venture outside anymore. To make matters worse, when she reviewed the photos she had taken of Molly before the school bus arrived, she made another unsettling discovery. Bianca had been capturing moments of Molly playing for some time before the school bus appeared. To her horror, upon closer examination of those photos, she realized just how long the snake had been lurking within striking distance of her daughter. In fact, the eastern brown snake appeared beside Molly in 3 separate photos. In the aftermath of this heart-stopping incident, Bianca found it difficult to look at those now infamous photos, and she struggled to sleep for weeks. She couldn't shake the haunting image of what could have happened, envisioning Molly being rushed away in an ambulance. But how did the brave 2-year-old react to her near brush with death? When Bianca showed her daughter the photo, Molly considered it for a moment and then cheerfully exclaimed, "That's me," while pointing at herself, completely unaware of the snake in the photo. Bianca couldn't help but laugh, finding solace in the fact that at least one of her children wouldn't be scared by the experience.